We have an interesting scenario where a customer dropped this car off, says it was working just fine. This morning had to jump the car. That's usually a question that comes up, says, can you jump a hybrid vehicle or an electric vehicle? Well, it depends on what you're talking about. Understand, especially in a hybrid vehicle, how things start up. When it comes to a hybrid vehicle, we're going to use the high voltage battery to go ahead and run the starter motor, which is not a starter, it's part of the motor generator to go ahead and initiate things. So then you have the question, oh, well, is it the high voltage battery? Is it the low voltage battery? So we can verify that through Scan Tool, or we can use our common knowledge, because once again, there's nothing much that gets reinvented in the wheel. We still have a 12-volt battery. Depending on the vehicle, it may be in the trunk, it may be in the front. So when we initially look at this, it's come in, and you'll notice real quickly here that even though this has just come in, and we verify that the high voltage system is putting out charge, because there is no alternator. The alternator is the high voltage system. It is barely maintaining that battery, or at least it's draining very, very quickly. We've run a couple of tests on this, and we've seen battery depletion within 1 hour, which is going to lead to an analysis of the 12-volt battery. So we've been able to put a charge on it and monitor it before we condemn it. Understand that nothing in the high voltage system, in the hybrid system, is going to work unless the 12-volt basic system is actually working. So we call it the auxiliary power, but in reality, the 12-volt battery, the 12-volt supply is very important. That's what's going to provide power to all of our modules. So if the modules aren't getting power or insufficient power, that's going to be a problem. This vehicle is not going to start. It's not going to want to do anything. So we're going to go ahead and look at that. I have my DVOM on it. One thing that I do want to highlight, because I am working on a hybrid electric vehicle, I want to make sure I'm using my Cat 3 based DVOM. If you have a Category 2, that's not a problem, because we're working on a low voltage system, but the last thing you want is to forget and then start testing a high voltage circuit, and we don't want to have that confusion. So I'm using a Category 3 just to make sure that if I have to do further testing, I already have the right tool. As you can see, our charge isn't quite where it needs to be, so we're going to go ahead and put this back on the charger, bring the battery up, and go ahead and test things out, and we can verify how well the battery condition is on this, because once again, as of now, you would think that'd be enough to run things, but the minute we start activating some powers, that gets depleted. So we're going to go ahead and test out the 12-volt battery. This battery is already a little more than 2 years old. So these are things to take into consideration with just your common maintenance. All right, so now that we've put some charge into this battery, let's go ahead and run a battery diagnostic. So we have everything set up already. Only 295 cold cranking amps on this battery, which is what the specification is. So we're going to let it run its thing and follow the instructions on the menu and see what we get as a result on this 12-volt battery. So it's asking to go ahead and deplete the surface charge, turn the headlights on. We're going to turn them on, and when it tells us to turn it off, we'll come back and turn them off. Now we're depleting the surface charge according to the charger, but we have also verified there is no surface charge using our DVOM across the top of the battery. So it's asking if the terminals are clean and if they're tight. We have confirmed that. We have made sure that those terminals are clean and tight. And if you notice, our results say replace the battery. From 295 cold cranking amps, we only have 228, which a lot of you will say, well, that's not too bad. And you look at the voltage, it's sitting at 12.8. We know 12.6 is full charge. So that's almost additional voltage, kind of like the surface charge voltage. The thing is with this battery, if you look at the actual report, you'll find out that the charge status is good, but the battery's condition itself has been depleted. It can't maintain the charge. If you leave the car on, engine off for less than 1 hour, just working on this thing in a couple minutes, it actually drains down to as much as 6 volts, 6.6 volts to be exact. So if we want to look at this print result, you'll notice that our state of charge is at 100%, but the health of the battery is at 0%. So in this occasion, nothing's wrong with the hybrid system per se. Our problem is with the 12-volt battery, so we're going to go ahead, recommend to replace that 12-volt battery, put it back into the sequence. The 12-volt battery does not require a calibration setup or any kind of acknowledgement that's been replaced. Please verify on the other vehicles you're working on. It may require a calibration or a registration, sometimes is the word they'll use for that, to let the system know that we've replaced 12-volt battery. On the high voltage battery, the same thing goes on. If you replace a high voltage battery or replace a cell, it will require an update to let the system know that it has been replaced. So take those things into account as we're servicing these cars. That applies to both hybrid electric vehicles and some of your conventional vehicles. Hopefully you understand that not all the problems that you may see in a hybrid electric vehicle has to do with the high voltage circuit. It may be something as simple as the conventional 12-volt auxiliary battery, just like our conventional vehicles. So take that into account, and for more information on hybrid electric and battery electric vehicles, make sure you visit AVI On Demand.